Chapter 2555. Ji Lishue stood alone at the side, watching Di Tiansong and Yu Relin whispering to each other. She couldn't help but frown, not knowing what they were talking about. However, Ji Lishue was in a very bad mood, so she wasn't in the mood to think about it. She felt that her previous thoughts were too extravagant. Judging from Di Tiansong's current attitude, she knew that he had completely given up. Facing such a Di Tiansong, Ji Lishue also had mixed feelings. Perhaps she should have given up long ago. Yu Relin slowly walked in front of Ji Lishue, a concerned smile on his handsome face. "Lishue, don't worry, I will definitely help you get revenge for the grievances you suffered." Ji Lishue couldn't help but be startled. She didn't expect Yu Relin to suddenly say such words to her. Without waiting for Ji Lishue's reply, Yu Relin's figure had already disappeared in front of Ji Lishue. It was as if he was full of confidence as he went to find Bailey Hongzhuang for revenge. Only then did Ji Lishue react. She hurriedly looked at Di Tiansong and said, "Tiansong, did you tell young master Yu what happened yesterday?" Di Tiansong nodded and said, "Yes." "Didn't you say that yesterday's matter was over? Now you want young master Yu to find trouble with them. If their background is really not simple, what should we do?" Ji Lishue's face was full of confusion. She had already talked with Di Tiansong last night, and they had both made a decision. Why did Di Tiansong tell young master Yu about this matter now? Right now, she didn't want to connect yesterday's matter at all. She just wanted to let it go. However, Di Tiansong did indeed look indifferent. "Lishue, with our abilities, it will naturally be difficult for us to deal with them. But young master Yu is different. He is the 7th young master of the Yu clan. Wouldn't it be easy for him to deal with them? This is the Yu clan's territory, and they want to enter the Yu clan. It is undoubtedly best for us to deal with them." Di Tiansong's eyes flashed with a fierce and sinister light. He had lost face in front of everyone yesterday, and today he must get it back from Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang. Ji Lishue couldn't help frowning when she saw Di Tiansong acting like this. She understood that Di Tiansong wanted to use his power to bully others. Although this kind of revenge could let them vent their resentment, it was not relying on their own strength, but on someone else. It made her feel a little uncomfortable. She felt that the Di Tiansong in front of her was no longer the person she was familiar with, because the things he did were beyond her expectations again and again. "I think it's better not to complicate this matter any further." With that, Ji Lishue prepared to stop Yu Relin. Right now, she didn't want to care about any of this at all. She just wanted to quietly participate in this preliminary round. What happened yesterday was already very embarrassing. If Yu Relin went to deal with this matter today, it would undoubtedly remind everyone of what happened yesterday, and the impact would be even greater. Moreover, if Master Yu Siqing knew about this matter, he would probably think that she had asked Yu Relin to stand up for her. It would be terrible if his impression of her was affected. This was what Ji Lishue cared about the most. Chapter 2556. Ji Lishue glanced at Di Tiansong with disappointment in her eyes. "I'm not happy about what happened yesterday, but I don't want Yu Relin to avenge me." She didn't like Yu Relin, so she didn't want to owe him anything. Once you owed him something, you had to pay him back. However, Di Tiansong still didn't let go. Things have already come to this. Even if you stop Yu Relin, he won't let it go. "I don't need you to meddle in my business." Ji Lishue waved Di Tiansong's hand away, the disappointment in her eyes reaching its peak. She felt that Di Tiansong didn't do it for her sake. He said that he did it for his own selfish reasons. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bewitching were waiting in the crowd for the preliminaries to begin. Suddenly, a group of people walked toward them aggressively. They were coming from the direction of the two. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. It seemed that they had made a mistake, and the other party had come to cause trouble. It seemed that this person was the helper that the other party had found. Di Bewitching's deep eyes flashed coldly. He had given the other party a chance yesterday, but he didn't expect that they would dare to cause trouble today. Since that was the case, he could only deal with them together. Yu Relin swaggered in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bewitching. He could tell at a glance that these two were just ordinary people. Di Tiansong was a good-for-nothing, so it wasn't strange that they had beaten him into a pig's head. However, they couldn't touch Ji Lishue. Were you two the ones who bullied Lishue yesterday? Yu Ruilin stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. He crossed his arms and looked down at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Do you know that Lishue is my woman? You must have eaten a leopard's guts to bully her. Yu Ruilin immediately declared his sovereignty. In his opinion, even if Ji Lishue hadn't agreed to him yet, Ji Lishue would be his woman sooner or later. From the moment he took a fancy to Ji Lishue couldn't run away. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that Ji Lishue had found her man. For you, Di Beichen glanced at Yu Ruilin lazily. He had to at least know the other party's identity before he dealt with him. Seeing that the other party didn't know his identity, Yu Ruilin didn't feel strange. If the other party had known his identity, he would have kowtowed and begged for mercy. I am the Yu clan's 7th young master. Now you should know who you have offended. As soon as he said this, the viciousness in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. If the other party was someone else, she might not care so much. However, the other party was a member of the Yu clan, so he was one of her enemies. It seemed that the relationship between her and the Yu clan was not small. She hadn't taken the initiative to find trouble with the Yu clan, but the Yu clan had already come to find her. What 7th young master of the Yu clan? As long as they came to die, she wouldn't refuse them. Chapter 2557. However, the situation that Yu Ruilin expected did not happen. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at Yu Ruilin indifferently, as if his identity did not intimidate them at all. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's attitude, Yu Ruilin could no longer maintain his arrogance. Why didn't these two act according to common sense? When the surrounding people saw Yu Ruilin, their expressions changed. Their eyes were filled with fear and dread. The Yu clan's 7th young master has come to stand up for Ji Lishue. I'm afraid that these two are going to be in trouble. I heard that the Yu clan's 7th young master has already taken a fancy to Ji Lishue, but Ji Lishue doesn't seem to like him. Looking at the current situation, it's impossible for these two to enter the Yu clan through the recruitment assembly. For a moment, everyone could not help but sympathize with Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Speaking of which, this matter was completely instigated by Ji Lishue and Di Beichen. It was just that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's reaction was a little unexpected. They thought that Ji Lishue and Di Beichen did not intend to take revenge, but now it seemed that this revenge was more serious than they thought. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that the situation was a little out of their expectations. If the other party forced them to take their lives, then they could only find another way to enter the Yu clan. After all, this was not the only way to enter the Yu clan. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were about to take action, Ji Lishue hurriedly walked to Yu Ruilin's side. Lishue, you're here. When Yu Ruilin saw that Ji Lishue had arrived, a deep smile appeared on his handsome face. The two of them were the ones who bullied you yesterday, right? Tell me, how do you want to deal with them? I'll definitely avenge you. Yu Ruilin said confidently. In the Yu clan's territory, if he wanted to deal with these two people, it was undoubtedly a simple matter. In his opinion, this was simply a heaven-sent opportunity for him to perform. When Ji Lishue saw Bailey Hongzhuang, her expression was filled with guilt and embarrassment. If possible, she really didn't want to see Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Yiqian ever again. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at Ji Lishue calmly. They wanted to know how Ji Lishue was going to deal with them. However, Ji Lishue's performance once again exceeded everyone's expectations. Young Master Yu, thank you for your kind intentions. However, this matter has already been settled. I hope that you will not be entangled in this matter. Ji Lishue's attitude was very clear. She would rather suffer a loss than continue to blow this matter up. Most importantly, she was unwilling to accept Yu Ruilin's kindness. Hearing Ji Lishue's words, Yu Ruilin's expression changed slightly as a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. Lu Shui, you don't have to be afraid. With me here, no one can bully you. Ji Lishue shook her head stubbornly. I didn't suffer any grievances. I hope young Master Yu won't take this matter to heart. Master, what's the situation with Ji Lishue now? She actually took the initiative to stand up and reject? Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with doubt. This didn't match Ji Lishue's character yesterday. I don't know what's going on either. I'm afraid there's some other reason behind this, Bailey Hongzhuang said telepathically. However, since the situation had changed, she didn't mind continuing to watch. Chapter 2558. I heard from Tian Song that you're in a bad mood because these people bullied you. Yu Relin frowned as anxiety appeared on his face. He didn't understand why Ji Lishue would say such a thing. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally understood after hearing Yu Relin's words. It turned out that Ji Lishue wasn't the one who started it, but Di Tiansong. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. It seemed that Di Tiansong wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work. If Ji Lishue hadn't stopped them, they would have blamed everything on Ji Lishue and Yu Ruelin. I didn't think that Di Tiansong was such a despicable person. Xiao Bai's eyes flashed with disgust. They hated Ji Lishue the most after yesterday's incident and didn't feel much about Di Tiansong's group. However, judging from the current situation, Di Tiansong was even more despicable than Ji Lishue. Ji Lishue also felt uncomfortable as everyone looked at her in confusion. She immediately explained, "Young Master Yu, it's not like that. I'm not in a bad mood, and it's not because of them. The preliminaries are about to begin, and I'm just a little nervous." Yu Relin didn't know what to say when he saw how determined Ji Lishue was. He only glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Bai. Judging from the situation, he could only give up on revenge. "Young Master Yu, let's go back first." Ji Lishue didn't want to stay here any longer. She immediately grabbed Yu Ruelin's arm and wanted to leave. Yu Ruelin didn't want to give up, but the moment Ji Lishue grabbed his arm, that thought disappeared from his mind. Ever since he had met Ji Lishue, she had never been so close to him. No matter what, it was worth it. After Ji Lishue, Yu Ruelin, and the others left, the surroundings quieted down again. Bailey Hongzhuang looked in the direction Ji Lishue and the others left. Her gaze changed slightly. She felt that Ji Lishue looked very different today. Yesterday, Ji Lishue had been spoiled and domineering, but today she seemed to have suffered a great grievance. It was really interesting. "Master, I don't think it's that simple. Why don't I follow them and take a look?" Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with excitement. It was very interested in such things. Most importantly, it wanted to know how Di Tiansong would react when he saw this scene being stopped. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, "Go." After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's approval, Xiao Hei immediately followed after Ji Lishue. Thinking about it, Yu Ruelin would definitely ask Ji Lishue the real reason later, then it would be able to know the ins and outs of this matter. This is really interesting. In comparison, Ji Lishue's attitude is rather unfathomable. Di Beichen's expression was calm. Even if something like that had just happened, it did not affect him at all. It was just that the situation was rather interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. "Xiao Hei will report to us in a while." With Xiao Hei's size, no one would be able to discover it after it had shrunk. Chapter 2559. Di Tiansong's face darkened when he saw that Ji Lishue had stopped Yu Ruelin from taking revenge. Ji Lishue's actions had put him in an awkward position. Yu Ruelin would definitely ask him what was going on, and it might even cause Yu Ruelin's displeasure. Di Tiansong was extremely depressed when he thought of this. Such a good opportunity had been ruined just like that. "Lishue, are you really not unhappy because of them?" Yu Ruelin asked Ji Lishue. He had a feeling that things were not so simple. Moreover, when he went to look for trouble, he had heard the discussions around him. There must have been a conflict between Ji Lishue and the two people yesterday. Ji Lishue shook her head. She knew Yu Ruelin's character. If she said yes, then Yu Ruelin would definitely not give up looking for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other person. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the other person just now, the fear she felt was even more obvious. She felt that these two people were definitely not ordinary people, and it was better not to offend them. Moreover, yesterday's matter had already been laughed at, so why bring it up again now? "Young Master Yu, I'm really fine. I just want to participate in this recruitment assembly properly and enter the Yu clan legitimately. I hope you can help me. Ji Lishue stared at Yu Ruilin. Although she did not have a good impression of Yu Ruilin, she was still grateful that Yu Ruilin was willing to stand up for her just now. Hearing Ji Lishue's words, Yu Ruilin nodded and said, I understand. Lishue, don't worry. With your medical skills, you definitely won't have a problem passing the recruitment assembly. A smile appeared on Ji Lishue's face. Thank you, young master Yu. I'll go and prepare now. The preliminaries are about to begin. Okay, I'll see you after your competition. After Ji Lishue left, Yu Ruilin went to look for Di Tiansong. He was very unhappy that Di Tiansong dared to lie to him about this matter. When Di Tiansong saw Yu Ruilin walking towards him with an unfriendly expression, his heart sank. Without waiting for Yu Ruilin to ask him, he took the initiative to explain. Young Master Yu, I'm telling the truth. However, Yu Ruilin looked at Di Tiansong coldly. Nonsense, Lishue doesn't care about this at all. Young Master Yu, I guarantee that I am speaking the truth. Lishue was just afraid of those two people, so she didn't want to get into trouble. Think about it, today is the Yu clan's exhibition conference. If you attack the people who are participating in the recruitment conference, wouldn't that damage your reputation? I think Lishue must have compromised because of this. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. Everyone knows what happened yesterday. Hearing Di Tiansong's explanation, Yu Ruilin's expression became better. After all, as the seventh young master of the Yu clan, if he came back without doing anything after going to look for Yu Yang in such an aggressive manner, it would really damage his reputation. However, if Ji Lishue was doing this for his sake, then everything would be different. That better be the case. If you lie to me, you should know the consequences. Yu Ruilin spat out these words and turned to leave. He wanted to investigate this matter himself. Chapter 2560. With Yu Ruilin's departure, Di Tiansong looked at Ji Lishue in the distance with a hint of annoyance. This was supposed to be killing two birds with one stone, but Ji Lishue had ruined it, and now he was the one who had gotten himself into trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen already knew that he was the one behind it, and Yu Ruilin was suspicious and dissatisfied with him. He had originally planned to push all the blame to Yu Ruilin and Ji Lishue and stay out of it, but he didn't expect that all the trouble would come to him. Thinking of this, Di Tiansong didn't dare to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. He only hoped that they wouldn't be angry because of this. Ji Lishue had Yu Ruilin's support in the Yu clan's territory, but Di Tiansong had nothing. After understanding the situation with Di Tiansong, Xiao He didn't immediately report to Bailey Hongzhuang, but followed behind Ji Lishue. It felt that Ji Lishue still had a lot of stories. Since it was already here, it naturally had to figure out everything before reporting back. After thinking about it, Di Tiansong still went to find Ji Lishue. He really didn't understand why Ji Lishue wanted to ruin his show and put him in such an awkward situation. Lishue, what did you mean by doing that? Di Tiansong looked at Ji Lishue with an angry face. He didn't understand why Ji Lishue put him in such a situation. Ji Lishue's mood was already very bad, and now that Di Tiansong actually came to criticize her, the anger in her heart was self-evident. You still have the nerve to ask me what I mean? I want to ask you what you mean. What do I mean? Di Tiansong frowned. What can I mean? Don't I want to take revenge for you? Take revenge for me? Ji Lishue sneered, and the coldness in her eyes gradually condensed into ice. I think you want to take revenge for yourself? I don't need you to think for me. Seeing Ji Lishue's attitude, Di Tiansong's face instantly darkened. Yesterday's conflict was caused by you. Now that someone can take revenge for you, you're still not happy? Instead, you're blaming everything on me. What's wrong with you? I'm fine. Ji Lishue's voice was filled with anger. She felt aggrieved about what had happened yesterday, but she had never thought of asking Yu Ruilin to avenge her. Di Tiansong, you know that I don't want to have anything to do with Yu Ruilin, but you still ask Yu Ruilin to do these things for me. You know what you are thinking. I admit that I've always liked you, but now you're giving me to someone else? Aren't you being a little too simple-minded? Who I, Ji Lishue, marry in the future is not something you can decide. In the future, you'd better not appear in front of me again. Let's just pretend that we've never met. Ji Lishue didn't even want to look at Di Tiansong after saying that. She turned around and walked toward the entrance of the preliminaries. After today's incident, she finally saw through Di Tiansong. In fact, ever since Yu Ruelin appeared, she had gradually discovered that Di Tiansong was gradually becoming different from the person she liked. It was just that she was unwilling to admit it. Now that everything was laid out in front of her, she could no longer deceive herself. Chapter 2561. Di Tiansong stared blankly at Ji Lishue's departing figure. He did not expect Ji Lishue to suddenly say something like that. However, the disgust and determination in Ji Lishue's words made him feel a stab of pain in his heart. He could feel the deep disappointment, and when Ji Lishue admitted that she had been in love with him all these years, he was shocked. However, Di Tiansong quickly regained his composure. He did like Ji Lishue, but what was the use? From the moment Yu Ruelin fell in love with Ji Lishue, everything was meaningless. He could not compete with Yu Ruelin at all, so he might as well use this to please Yu Ruelin, and he would have a better future. Xiao Hei's eyes widened. The scene in front of it was really beyond its expectations. It did not expect to see such an emotional drama after following it here. However, Di Tiansong was too much of a jerk. Because of the other party's power, he even gave up the woman he liked? Was he still a man? Soon, Xiao Hei told Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen everything it knew. After knowing all this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also understood. No wonder she was so angry when she saw us being lovey-dovey yesterday. It turns out that she was jealous. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a faint smile. His devilishly handsome appearance exuded a fatal temptation. Bailey Hongzhuang understood Di Beichen's thoughts just by looking at his eyes. The corners of her lips could not help but curl up. She did not expect that their public display of affection would provoke someone. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood why Ji Lishue was so angry. In comparison, it was understandable. I feel a little sorry for Ji Lishue now. Di Tiansong is obviously not responsible at all. He is not as reliable as Yu Ruelin. Her beautiful eyes showed a touch of coldness. From Bailey Hongzhuang's point of view, Yu Ruelin was definitely more reliable than Di Tiansong. At least, Yu Ruelin dared to stand up for the woman he liked when she was bullied. However, Di Tiansong didn't even have the courage to stand up for himself. On the contrary, he wanted to use others to help him vent his anger. What a coward! After today's incident, Ji Lishue has seen Di Tiansong's true colors. She has jumped out of the fire pit. Di Beichen looked indifferent. He didn't care about other people's affairs, but he had to deal with Di Tiansong. Ji Lishue's judgment of people naturally can't compare to Master's. Baisher looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Master and Di Beichen were a match made in heaven. Hearing Baisher's words, Di Beichen reached out and stroked Baisher's head. The smile in his eyes gradually deepened. Baisher is getting better and better at talking. Baisher raised his head proudly. Of course. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were laughing, a voice suddenly came from the high platform. The noisy central plaza instantly quietened down. Welcome everyone to Yu Tian City to participate in the Yu Clan's recruitment event. As soon as the words came out, a deafening applause came from below the high platform. Next, let us welcome the Yu Clan's clan leader, Yu Taotian, to host today's preliminaries. Chapter 2562. The Yu Clan's clan head wasn't someone that could be casually seen. Thus, everyone's gaze was focused on him. They wanted to see what kind of demeanor the illustrious Yu Clan head had. In their line of sight, they saw a man dressed in an ink-colored brocade robe slowly walking up the stage surrounded by a group of people. The man's figure was tall and straight, his back as straight as a spear. His eyes were bright and sharp. Even with just a glance, one could feel his terrifying aura and intimidating power. Only the gray hair at his temples made him seem more weathered. However, from his outstanding silhouette, one could vaguely see that he must have been a handsome man when he was young. However, just as everyone's attention was on the Yu Clan head, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was fixed on the figure on Yu Taotian's left. The man was about 40 years old. His figure was tall and sturdy. His handsome face wasn't as elegant as a youth's, but more mature and resolute. His pitch-black eyes were like a bottomless abyss, faintly revealing a sinister vibe like that of a venomous snake. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang saw the man, she could already tell that he was Lan Jingquang. As brothers, Lan Jingquang and Lan Yunxiao naturally had similarities. At the very least, they were both tall and handsome men. However, Lan Jingquang didn't have Lan Yunxiao's magnanimity and elegance. Instead, he had a malicious and deep aura. Bailey Hongzhuang finally met this uncle who had killed his own people and caused her entire family to be in such a state. Come to think of it, no matter who looked at the radiant and elegant man on the high platform, they would not be able to associate him with those despicable and sinister things. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her phoenix eyes, a trace of coldness quietly imprinted in her eyes. This kind of glory wouldn't accompany Lan Jingquang for much longer. Soon, Lan Jingquang would forever sink into darkness and pain. A strong murderous aura spread in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. That kind of hatred had been hidden in her heart for so long that it was almost uncontrollable. Actually, among all her enemies, Lan Jingquang was the one she couldn't forgive the most. Because no one else was related to them by blood, but Lan Jingquang had always been Lan Yunxiao's beloved big brother. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to lose control of the murderous aura pouring out of her body, Bewitching's hand slowly wrapped around Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. The warm embrace pulled Bailey Hongzhuang out of her previous negative and violent emotions. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and saw Bewitching's warm smile. She relaxed a little. He won't be in the limelight for much longer. Bewitching whispered into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. He understood Bailey Hongzhuang. When facing such an enemy, no one would be able to control their emotions. If Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were the ones standing here, they would be even more uncontrollable. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and withdrew from her previous state. Now wasn't the time to expose herself. On the stage, Lan Jingquang furrowed his brows. Just now, he had felt a murderous aura pressing towards him, but before he could pinpoint its exact location, it had already disappeared. It was truly strange. He rarely came to the Yu family, so logically speaking, there shouldn't be any enemies here. Welcome everyone to the recruitment assembly. This old man will be the host for today's preliminaries. I hope everyone can get good results. Chapter 2563. Thunderous applause resounded. Everyone below the stage looked at Yu Taotian with respect and reverence. The Yu clan master was such a powerful existence. Being able to participate in the recruitment assembly hosted by the Yu clan master was also a matter of honor. Yu Taotian looked at the lively scene around him and the smile in his eyes became even more intense. Although the Yu clan had met with an unforeseen event, the Yu clan's prestige was still the same as before. As long as they could recruit more outstanding seedlings this time, the Yu clan's vitality would be able to recover very quickly. I see that everyone has been waiting for a long time. This old man will not say any unnecessary words. Let the preliminary round of the recruitment assembly begin immediately. Yu Taotian waved his sleeves and announced the start of the preliminary round. Then he sat down on the stage. The Yu clan great elder followed up and said, since the number of doctors and poison masters participating in the preliminary round is much more than before, the preliminary round of the recruitment assembly this time will be conducted through an examination. As everyone can see, we have already prepared the venue and items for the examination. The questions were set by Master Yu Siqing. Everyone only needs to answer them. Anyone who reaches 60 points will be considered to have passed the preliminary round. You will be awarded 1 point, 70 points and above will be awarded 2 points, 80 points and above will be awarded 3 points, 90 points and above will be awarded 4 points and above 95 points will be awarded 5 points. After that, every additional point will be awarded 1 point. The person who gets full marks will be awarded 10 points. The results of the examination will be announced tomorrow. At that time, everyone can check their results on the ranking board. Hearing the method of the competition, the crowd below the stage started to discuss fervently. Everyone had thought of many kinds of competitions, but they never thought that there would be such a test. They were astonished and curious at the same time. I wonder what will be tested. Could it be the identification of medicinal herbs and diagnosis methods? This question was set by Master Unscrupulous. I'm afraid it won't be easy. However, as long as one can pass the preliminary round with 60 points, I think it shouldn't be too difficult. I think so too. 60 points is just a passing mark. One will definitely pass easily. The doctors and poison masters who were about to participate in the competition were full of confidence. It seemed that their judgment was indeed correct. The Yu clan was currently recruiting talents. Therefore, even the method of the competition had become much simpler. After all, it wasn't easy to pass the preliminary round of the previous recruitment conventions. Some of the doctors and poison masters who wanted to make up the numbers also had smiles on their faces. Even if they couldn't pass the recruitment, as long as they passed the preliminary round, it was a result worth mentioning. Master, this test looks very simple. You'll only get 1 point out of 60. I think many people will probably score more than 90, right? Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi had already returned to the Chaos Ring. However, they were still aware of the situation in the outside world. The scores in front are too low. If you want to get good results, you have to score high, Xiao Bai said. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes flashing with a thoughtful and silent light. This question was set by Unscrupulous. I don't think it's that simple. She and Unscrupulous had also crossed swords in the field of medicine and poison, and Unscrupulous's knowledge in this area was definitely very impressive. Since she came up with such a question, she must have enough confidence to filter out good doctors and poison masters through this method. Chapter 2564. Everyone thought that the Yu clan needed to recruit a large number of people this time, so the conditions would be relaxed. However, according to Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, things wouldn't be so simple. The Yu clan was able to stand tall in the Shengxian continent for so many years because they had their own family rules. Although they had suffered a great loss last time, they wouldn't be so desperate that they wouldn't be picky. After all, this would affect them even more. This was because the Yu clan's doctors and poison masters wouldn't always stay in the Yu clan. They would be sent to various powers. Bewitching's thoughts were the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. I'm afraid there won't be many people who will be able to pass 60 marks. This 60 marks could be a threshold. Some questions would be enough to exclude people who didn't have a solid foundation from passing 60 marks, while doctors and poison masters who had a solid foundation would be able to pass with high marks. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Looks like this recruitment event won't disappoint us. Now, the participating doctors and poison masters can go up the stage and find your seat to take the test. Following the Yu clan great elder's words, the people below the stage rushed up the stage. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching beside her and said, I'm going to take the test too. Good luck. Bewitching's lips curled into a gentle smile. Even though his appearance had changed, his outstanding temperament was still captivating. Bailey Hongzhuang also walked up the stage. Many people had already found their seats, and Bailey Hongzhuang also found the seat of number 169 after some searching. Among the many participants, Bailey Hongzhuang's seat was considered to be in the front. Although the doctors and poison masters were taking the test together, Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed that the poison masters were in a separate area. Presumably, the questions would be different. The recruitment event this time is really bustling. I'm sure there will be many outstanding doctors and poison masters. Lan Jingquang said to Yu Taotian with a face full of smiles as he looked at the people who were preparing for the exam. Yu Taotian was already in a good mood. Now that he heard Lan Jing's wild agreement, he couldn't help but feel even more pleased. Indeed, the recruitment assembly this time is even more grand, and Siqing's reputation is becoming more and more resounding. Ant's medical and poison skills are truly astonishing. I'm afraid that no one in the entire Shengxian continent can compare to you. Lan Jingquang was not stingy with his flattery, but there was a cold glint in his eyes. The Yu clan's strength really couldn't be underestimated. After these years of development and expansion, the Yu clan had become more and more formidable. Because of this, the Yu clan had been demanding more and more from him in recent years. He was already impatient, but he couldn't show it. Currently, his position in the Lan clan had already stabilized, but he still needed the backing of the Yu clan to intimidate them. With regards to Yu Siqing, this disgusting woman, if he could, he really didn't want to bother with her at all. Everyone in front of her felt that Yu Siqing was a master in their hearts. But if they really saw Yu Siqing, they would know how stupid their thoughts were. Chapter 2565. Lan Jingquang hid his emotions very well, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not miss the sinister look in his eyes. Lan Qingyan's condition had not improved at all. Presumably, Lan Jingquang's people were already frustrated to the point of no return. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. Lan Jingquang liked to pretend so much in the past, so why not wear this hypocritical mask and continue pretending? Actually, it was also a kind of pain to not be able to express one's true feelings and have to pretend to be another kind of emotion. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on a chair. There were no extra things on the table, only paper, pen, and a small copper gong. The paper and pen were used for the exam, while the small copper gong was used by the participants to hand in their papers after they had finished writing. The exam time is 2 hours. Once the time is up, you must hand in your papers. Otherwise, you will be considered to have given up. The Yu clan great elder's dignified voice rang out, waking everyone up. After all the contestants had taken their seats, the Yu clan members who were holding the test papers also slowly walked over and distributed the test papers to everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the group of doctors in front of her who were eagerly waiting for the exam. Her black and clear eyes could not help but smile. This situation reminded her of the scene when her old man tested her before. Very quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang received the papers. The questions on the paper were not few, but also not many. 2 hours was enough. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the questions on the paper and found that the points for these questions were very interesting. It seemed that her judgment was not wrong. Yu Siqing did not intend to relax the standards for this preliminary round and was still as strict as before. This was because the points for many of the smaller questions were spread out, totaling up to 40 points. And at the end, there were 2 major questions, each with 30 points. This meant that one of the 2 major questions had to be answered correctly in order to pass. If they could not answer it, then even if they answered all the questions correctly, it would be meaningless. These 2 major questions were very tricky. They raised a specific case and asked the doctor to diagnose and treat it. Although it was just a question, the introduction was very detailed. It was no different from seeing a real patient. A doctor who could cure this kind of illness would not be weak. The competition begins now. Following Yu Taoyan's words, all the doctors and poison masters picked up their pens and wrote down their number before starting to answer the questions. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was unhurriedly looking at the questions on the test paper, her expression leisurely. "Master, this kind of question shouldn't be difficult for you at all, right?" Xiao He transmitted her voice. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "This question is very good. Yu Siqing really lives up to her reputation." "Ah, don't worry, I'm just thinking about how much I should score." These questions were indeed difficult for others, but as a doctor whose medical skills were better than Yu Siqing's, it was naturally not a problem. "Let's get a perfect score and show Di Tiansong," Xiao Bai said as if she wanted to see the world in chaos. Di Tiansong was such a despicable person. It would be unforgivable if she did not teach him a lesson. If her master's results were average, wouldn't Di Tiansong and the rest jump up and laugh at her? Chapter 2566. She didn't care about Di Tiansong and Ji Lishu at all. The only thing that worried her was Yu Ruilin. As the 7th young master of the Yu clan, Yu Ruilin naturally had a say in the clan. Once Yu Ruilin decided to take revenge on them, the Yu clan wouldn't care if her results weren't outstanding enough. On the contrary, if her results were outstanding enough, it wouldn't be easy for Yu Ruilin to squeeze her out of the recruitment assembly. Therefore, it was best to get a high score. Ji Lishue had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang ever since she stepped onto the stage. No matter what happened yesterday had made her lose face. She also wanted to know how capable Bailey Hongzhuang was to be so arrogant. However, after Ji Lishue finished 2 questions, she looked up and found that Bailey Hongzhuang was still looking at the test paper. She didn't even start to answer. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't even answer the first question? If that was the case, it would be interesting. However, Ji Lixue didn't continue to pay attention to Bailey Hongzhuang. This time, she was aiming to become Master Yu Siqing's disciple. Therefore, whether it was the preliminary round or the final round, she had to get a good result. Only if she performed well enough would she have a chance to succeed. After making up her mind, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't delay any longer. She picked up her pen and started to write quickly. This test paper was child's play for Bailey Hongzhuang, so the speed at which she answered the questions was extremely amazing. She didn't even need to think and could directly write out the answers. She didn't even need 2 hours. After all the doctors and poison masters started to answer the questions, the entire central square quieted down. Everyone's eyes fell on the contestants who were answering the questions. 2 hours wasn't a long time. I heard that Ji Lixue has the highest expectations this time. She received guidance from Master Yu Siqing before and has been studying medicine all these years. It's very likely that she will become Master Yu Siqing's disciple through this recruitment assembly. Di Tiansong's strength is not bad either. He has always been on par with Ji Lixue. Speaking of which, I'm really curious. Don't underestimate the other contestants. Many of them are famous outside, it's just that we don't know about them. Once the results of the preliminaries are out, we'll know who has the highest chance of winning. Everyone was discussing in low voices, especially the locals of Yutian City. Every time the recruitment event was held, it was a good time to place bets. Therefore, the results of the preliminaries were very important. Ding! Just as everyone was thinking about who had the highest chance of winning, a clear gong sound suddenly came from the high platform. Hearing this voice, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. They looked at the high platform in astonishment. Didn't the exam just start? How did the gong sound so quickly? Not only were the onlookers stunned, even Yu Taiyan and the others were stunned. They knew that someone would answer the questions early, but it seemed to be a little too fast. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the green figure on the high platform. Look, isn't that the woman who taught Ji Lixue and Di Tiansong a lesson yesterday? She actually handed in her paper so early? Could it be that she couldn't do it, so she gave up? Chapter 2567. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a gong. Everyone who was taking the exam raised their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. However, when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang sounding the gong, they were all stunned. Ji Lixue was also stunned. When she started answering the questions, Bailey Hongzhuang was still looking at the papers and had not even started answering. Now, she had not even finished answering the questions in front of her, and Bailey Hongzhuang was actually handing in her paper? What was going on? Was Bailey Hongzhuang planning to hand in a blank paper? At this moment, this was the only possibility that flashed in Ji Lixue's mind. Because in such a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang did not have time to answer the questions. However, when she knew this, Ji Lixue could not help but sigh in relief. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have any achievements in medical skills. Thinking about it carefully, this kind of result was expected. Bailey Hongzhuang was so strong that she was obviously a cultivator. It seemed that she only had a little understanding of medical skills. However, the Yu clan's recruitment event was not something that could be passed by people with a little understanding of medical skills. It was better to give up now that she knew the difference. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang should be leaving Yutian City soon. Then, she would not have to face these troubles again. When Di Tiansong saw Bailey Hongzhuang handing in her paper like this, a mocking smile appeared in his eyes. He had already guessed that this woman was not capable. She actually dared to teach him a lesson. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was so useless, it should be easy to borrow Yu Ruilin's hands to teach her a lesson. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Tiansong's strength was not simple, the number of experts in the Yu clan was also very shocking. Dealing with 2 cultivators was a piece of cake. The Yu clan great elder walked to Bailey Hongzhuang with a doubtful heart. Looking at the ordinary-looking but confident girl in front of him, he asked, "You want to hand in your paper?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly and passed the test paper in her hands to the Yu clan great elder, saying, "Yes." Hearing this, the Yu clan great elder took Bailey Hongzhuang's test paper. He thought that even if he wanted to give up, He should have waited a little longer. Because he gave up, he became the first person to hand in the test paper. It was really a little strange. However, when the great elder of the Yu clan discovered that the test paper was filled with beautiful handwriting, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. There wasn't a single blank spot on the entire test paper. This proved that this woman had answered all the questions in such a short time. Don't they need time to think? As the great elder of the Yu clan, he had a certain understanding of Yu Siqing's craftiness and methods in setting questions. It was definitely not easy to answer. However, the answers on the test paper were not fake. It was just that he did not know whether they were correct or not. Bailey Hongzhuang left the examination stage under the great elder of the Yu clan's incredulous gaze. She slowly walked to Di Beichen's side. The surrounding discussions also entered Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. In reality, other than the great elder of the Yu clan who knew that she had answered the questions, everyone else thought that she had given up because she was not strong enough. As a result, everyone looked at her strangely. If she was not strong enough, she should have kept a low profile. How could she play to the gallery like this? Wouldn't she be the one losing face in the end? Chapter 2568. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did not continue to stay in the central plaza. Today's preliminary round was over, and the results would only be announced the next day, so there was no need for them to stay. However, when this scene fell into the eyes of the others, it helped to turn their guesses into reality. Bailey Hongzhuang must have been afraid of losing too much face, so she hurriedly left. It was likely that her face would also leave Yutian City today. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the recruitment assembly. Many people thought that they had some understanding of medicine, so they tried to enter the Yu clan to learn medicine. It was a pity that the threshold to enter the Yu clan was much higher than they thought. So many people left when they realized that they could not meet the standards. Of course, after so many years, the only loser who was as arrogant as Bailey Hongzhuang was Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, your answering speed is too fast. I think no one believes you. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with emotion. Master was in the limelight, and everyone thought that she had failed. This was a very rare scene. This kind of question is difficult for others, but it's easy for me. The answer is in my heart, so naturally it won't take much time. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright and beautiful eyes were filled with confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang was called a godly doctor at such a young age. This kind of skill was not exaggerated, and it was not something that people like Ji Lixue could compare with. Looks like tomorrow's results will shock everyone. White Lion's face was filled with anticipation. Wherever his master appeared, she would always be the most dazzling one. After Yu Relin sent people to find out what happened to Ji Lixue and the others yesterday, he already knew the whole story. Di Tiansong did not lie to him. Ji Lixue had indeed suffered at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. You still haven't found out the identity of these two people? No, these two people have not contacted anyone since they came to Yutian City. They also did not mention their names, so we can't find out their identities. These two people are so sneaky. There must be something wrong. Yu Ruilin narrowed his eyes. Since the matter had been investigated, no matter what happened, as long as the other party had wronged Ji Lixue, he would not let them go. Otherwise, wouldn't others say that he, Yu Ruilin, could not even protect the woman he liked? At night, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were eating in the house. Suddenly, a series of footsteps came from outside the door. When the three beasts heard the sudden sound, they quickly returned to the Chaos Ring. Although their identities in Yutian City were not known in Yutian City, if Lan and the others heard it, things would be different. Bang. Uses the U's, U, and Bailey, S's, S, and the others. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were not surprised. They had already guessed that Di Tiansong would urge Yu Ruilin to cause trouble, and they had been waiting here. When Di Tiansong saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were still in the restaurant and had not left, he could not help but look excited. Chapter 2569. You're about to die, yet you're still in the mood to eat. Di Tiansong sneered at Bailey Hongzhuang. But that's good. At least you won't starve to death. Di Beichen looked coldly at Di Tiansong, whose face was still bruised. It seems that you haven't remembered the lesson I taught you yesterday. Today, I'll leave you with an unforgettable memory. Noticing Bewitching's cold gaze, Tiansong couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Yesterday, Bewitching had taught him a lesson that he couldn't fight back. He knew very well how strong this man was. However, now that he had Yu Ruelin's support, he mustered up his courage. I'm telling you, don't threaten me. Young Master Yu is here. Even if you threaten me, I won't be afraid. After saying this, Tiansong quietly took 2 steps back and made way for Yu Ruelin. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Tiansong, who was acting like a lackey, and couldn't help but frown. Ji Lishue's taste in people is really bad. She actually likes a lackey like you. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang really felt sorry for Ji Lishue. After receiving Xiao Hei's report today, she had already guessed the ins and outs of the whole thing. Presumably, the reason why he had called Yu Ruelin and the others to cause trouble these days was also hidden from Ji Lishue. It seemed that Tiansong's despicableness wasn't something ordinary people could achieve. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Tiansong and Yu Ruelin's expressions couldn't help but change. Their expressions were somewhat complicated. Tiansong couldn't help but feel guilty. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang and Yu Ruelin to know that Ji Lishue liked him. However, now that they said this in front of Yu Ruelin, the situation wasn't very optimistic. Yu Ruelin's expression was slightly cold. He knew that Ji Lishue had always rejected him, and it had something to do with Tiansong. Now that someone had said it so bluntly, he felt a little embarrassed. After all, Yu Ruelin was much better than Tiansong in every aspect. Such a huge commotion had naturally attracted a lot of attention. However, with Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the crowd burst into an uproar. Suddenly Yu Ruelin and Tiansong's faces turned even uglier. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense. Tiansong hurriedly said. However, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the extremely guilty Tiansong in front of her, and an idea came to her mind. As the saying goes, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. She didn't want to be the first bird. Since Tiansong liked to play this game with her, she didn't mind playing with him. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze to Yu Rueling. Young Master Yu, anyone with a clear head would know that Tiansong is using you to help him vent his anger. Ji Lishue's attitude today is already very obvious, but Tiansong is still egging you on. It's not because of anything else, but because the person who was taught a lesson yesterday was Tiansong and not Ji Lishue. You're the dignified 7th young master of the Yu clan. Are you going to take revenge for such a despicable person? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. In fact, Bewitching had only intimidated Ji Lishue yesterday. He hadn't caused any harm to her body. Chapter 2570. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yu Ruelin couldn't help but frown. He had originally planned to help Ji Lishue vent her anger, and Ji Lishue would probably be very grateful to him when she found out about this tomorrow. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly revealed everything, he couldn't understand it himself. Ji Lishue's behavior this morning was really strange. Seeing Yu Ruelin's hesitation, Tiansong hurriedly said, Young Master Yu, don't listen to this woman's nonsense. Young Master Yu, Ji Lishue has already fallen out with Tiansong. As the saying goes, if you want to capture a beauty's heart, you have to seize the opportunity now. If you're still with Tiansong now, I don't think Ji Lishue wants to see you. If you don't believe me, you can ask the girls here. Master, you're provoking an internal strife. Xiao Bai said softly. Anyway, both of them are bad people. Let's pick first. It'll be best if they can fight. Just treat it as a free show. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. She was just looking at Tiansong's smug face and wanted to cut down his prestige. What if I don't succeed? Then I'll cripple them all. Bewitching knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was just doing it on a whim. He wasn't in a hurry and just treated it as a good show. Anyway, this group of people in front of them didn't pose any threat to them. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yu Ruelin couldn't help but look at the onlookers. He saw many girls secretly nodding their heads. From a girl's point of view, Ji Lishue's attitude this morning was the attitude she had in mind. For a moment, Yu Ruelin was also a little dumbfounded. This development was different from what he had imagined. However, at this moment, the Yu clan's great elder also appeared in the restaurant. Ruilin, what are you doing? The great elder of the Yu clan looked at Yu Ruilin unhappily, his expression revealing a bit of unhappiness and anger. Suddenly seeing the great elder of the Yu clan, Yu Ruilin couldn't help but be startled. He hurriedly bowed and greeted, "Great elder. Now is the time for the recruitment event. As the young master of the Yu clan, not only did you not help the Yu clan to maintain the peace of Yution City, you even brought people here to cause trouble. What a scandal!" While speaking, Yu clan's great elder couldn't help but glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had a deep impression of this girl who was the first to hand in her paper today. The most important thing was that Yu Siqing had already given the results. The results were extremely shocking. It was because of this that he was prepared to meet this woman. He didn't expect to see such a scene. Yu Ruilin had never thought that the great elder of the Yu clan would appear here. He was completely stupefied. Didn't the great elder usually stay in the clan? Moreover, today was the day when they were busy judging the results of the preliminary round. How could the great elder have nothing better to do than to stroll around here? Come back with me. The great elder of the Yu clan did not have the mood to continue staying here. After throwing down a sentence, he turned around and left. Although Yu Ruilin was usually domineering, in front of the great elder of the Yu clan, he didn't have the slightest bit of temper. He could only bring his people and leave. However, Yu Ruilin also didn't know what to do next. He also didn't want to be used by others. Now that he had the chance, he would go back and think about it. If he was really used, wouldn't he become a joke? Chapter 2571. Di Tiansong also wanted to leave with Yu Ruilin, but Di Beichen had already seen through Di Tiansong's plan. Therefore, when Di Tiansong was about to leave, Di Beichen had already blocked his path. Seeing Di Beichen suddenly blocking his path, Di Tiansong's face turned ugly. He wanted to leave immediately, but the Yu clan great elder was here, so he didn't dare to make too much noise. Most importantly, from Yu Ruilin's attitude just now, he could see that Yu Ruilin was already suspicious of him. If he still dared to call Yu Ruilin at this time, he was afraid that he would completely offend Yu Ruilin. Under such circumstances, Di Tiansong could only watch Yu Ruilin and the others leave. After Yu Ruilin and the others left, the onlookers couldn't help but withdraw their gazes and look at Di Tiansong with sympathy. Di Tiansong really went for wool and came home shorn. Yesterday, Di Tiansong was taught a lesson by Di Beichen, so he was afraid that today, Di Tiansong would be in big trouble. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were like two mountains blocking Di Tiansong's path. Di Tiansong couldn't help but sweat, and his face became even paler and more embarrassed. Di Tiansong couldn't help but wipe his cold sweat and speak, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't know what to say. "Wife, how do you think we should solve this?" Di Beichen turned his head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Yesterday, his punishment was still too light. Today, he wouldn't let Di Tiansong, who was full of bad ideas, have a chance to leave. Torture him first, then kill him. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was relaxed, and these cold and cruel words were said as if the weather was good today. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Tiansong couldn't help but shiver. He only felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. "I'll listen to my wife." Di Beichen smiled faintly. Today, Di Tiansong would definitely not have a good ending in their hands. Hero, I was wrong, please let me go today." Di Tiansong's face was bitter, he was completely at his wit's end. He was no match for Di Beichen and Yu Ruilin's strength. And Yu Ruilin and the others weren't here, so he couldn't ask for help. Thinking of the ferocity of Di Beichen's attack, he knew that Di Beichen would really take his life. When you were arrogant before, you didn't think that you would do something like this now. Why didn't you think to you now? To do you choose to? To Di Beichen's to be a bully others. S's, I to see to Di Beichen's to him to him. To dis me. His, it was S's. When the onlookers saw this, they couldn't help but shrink their necks. They all felt pain for Di Tiansong. In the next second, Di Beichen directly picked up Di Tiansong, walked into the room, and then closed the door. Seeing that there was no good show to watch, the onlookers could only disperse. However, they could imagine that tomorrow, Di Tiansong wouldn't be able to continue to be arrogant in Utian City. In the end, when Di Tiansong left Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's room, his face was bruised and swollen. It was impossible to see his original appearance. However, Di Tiansong being able to leave alive still surprised the onlookers. They thought that Di Tiansong would completely lose his life today. Chapter 2572. Master, you just taught Di Tiansong a lesson and let him go? Xiao He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a puzzled expression. This was not in line with Master's personality. Killing him here would dirty this room. I've given him some itching powder so that he can enjoy himself tonight. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. Killing Di Tiansong like this might cause some trouble. It was better to let Di Tiansong enjoy the taste of pain. Moreover, the two of them could shirk all responsibility. Most importantly, killing Di Tiansong so cleanly was letting him off too easily. Hearing this, the three beasties looked at each other. They knew that things were not so simple. Master would not let Di Tiansong off so easily. Master, that Di Tiansong is also a good doctor. Can he neutralize this itching powder? If he can neutralize it, he should be Yu Siqing's direct disciple. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. The effect of this itching powder was really good. It was best used to torture people. Yu Siqing might be able to neutralize it, but Di Tiansong did not have the qualifications to ask Yu Siqing to do it. Therefore, the result was already set. Di Tiansong would not live for more than 3 days. Once these words were spoken, Di Beichen and the three beasties understood that offending Bailey Hongzhuang would not end well. This method was indeed more suitable than directly taking Di Tiansong's life. I heard that Lan Qingyan's injury has not improved. Her body's condition is getting worse. Lan Jingquang and the rest should be under pressure right now. Di Beichen slowly said. After coming to Utian City, Lan Qingyan's condition was no longer a secret. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. Very quickly, everyone knew about this matter. Now that more than a month has passed, Lan Qingyan's right-hand injury has not recovered. She must have lost a lot of blood. It is expected that her body's condition is getting worse. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. If the poison acted up again after Lan Qingyan's injuries had healed, then Lan Qingyan's condition wouldn't be so bad. But perhaps the heavens also did not like Lan Qingyan, so she suffered even more pain. This is all thanks to White Lion. Xiao He and Xiao Bai both gave White Lion a thumbs up. White Lion's actions that day were truly awe-inspiring. Even now, when they thought about it, they couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Master, if this continues, will Lan Qingyan die? No, with Yu Siqing's ability, she can't cure this poison, but she can still keep Lan Qingyan's life. Regarding this point, Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear. As long as the effects of the poison wore off, Lan Qingyan would recover on her own. However, this period of time was enough for some changes to occur in the Lan clan. She didn't believe that Lan Jingquang had complete control over the Lan family. She didn't believe that the Lan family didn't have any other voices. As long as there was still such a long period of time, it was enough for the other party to do a lot of things. At that time, when she went to the Lan clan, the situation would be more favorable. That vicious woman should live first. We have to let her know what happened next before she can die. White Lion raised his head. Thinking back to when he bit off Lan Qingyan's arm, that feeling was really satisfying. Chapter 2573. Compared to the crowd who were rushing to see the results, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were much more leisurely as they walked towards the central plaza unhurriedly. The Yu clan had been busy the entire day yesterday before they managed to sort out the results. This morning, the great elder of the Yu clan had already brought everyone to release the results. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at the central plaza, it was already in full swing. Everyone was crowded at the place where the results were announced, wanting to see the results of the preliminary round clearly. As cultivators, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen used their movement techniques to smoothly walk to the front of the list. As expected, They immediately saw the number 169 and the name Xian Yi hanging at the top. Coming to Tian City, Bailey Hongzhuang naturally could not use her real name, so she wrote Xian Yi's name upside down. Thinking about it, no one would think too much about this seemingly ordinary name. Who is this Xian Yi? How come I've never heard of him before? I don't know, there's no such person in the list of hot candidates. He should be from somewhere else, right? Full marks. This Xian Yi actually managed to get full marks for Great Master Yu Xiqing's questions. This is really amazing. Everyone's gaze was fixed on Xian Yi's name and the two shocking words full marks. As people of Tian City, they all knew that Great Master Yu Xiqing's examination questions were not simple. Full marks, that was something that had never happened before. Even the previous hot candidate, Ji Lixue, only got 95 points and was ranked second. The difference between the two of them was a whole 5 points. Although the difference did not seem big, in reality, the difference was shocking. The higher the score, the more one could see how amazing Xian Yi's medical skills were. When Ji Lixue saw Xian Yi's name, she could not help but frown, her face full of shock. She was originally full of confidence that she would definitely get first place in the preliminary round, but she did not expect that there would actually be someone with a higher score than her, and by such a large margin. From the looks of it, she only got 5 points, but this Xian Yi got 10 points. This kind of score would greatly benefit Xian Yi in the finals. Master, you're really amazing. Full marks. Xiao He could not hide the excitement on her face. Apart from Ji Lixue, who was in second place, who had 95 points, and Di Tiansong, who was in third place, who only had 93 points, most of the others had less than 90 points. The list only announced the names of those who scored 60 points and above. As for those who were eliminated, their names could not be found on the list, and their scores could not be known. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. From the looks of it, the Yu clan Great Elder's sudden appearance in our restaurant yesterday was not an accident. The three beasts couldn't help but stare blankly at his words, but Bewitching had already understood. Looks like your performance is too outstanding, even the Great Elder of the Yu clan wants to come and understand. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It's just that I didn't think that Yu Ruelin would be here, so the Yu clan Great Elder could only bring Yu Ruelin away. When everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang actually dared to come and look at the list today, their expressions became very interesting. This girl gave up so early yesterday, I didn't think that she would come to look at the results today. Could it be that she still thinks that she can pass the preliminary round by luck? I think that's the case. How interesting. Chapter 2574. Bailey Hongzhuang was one of the most eye-catching people at the recruitment assembly. She was very famous. However, she didn't become famous because of her fame and medical skills, but because of her conflict with Di Tiansong and the others. The strangest thing was that this woman had always been very mysterious. Until now, no one had found out her identity or name. Ji Lixue also came to the list of names. She looked straight at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen and asked, "Who are you?" At a closer look, one could see that Ji Lixue's face was more haggard than before. "What does it have to do with you who we are?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Ji Lixue playfully. Could it be that after she taught Di Tiansong a lesson yesterday, Ji Lixue couldn't stand the pain of a scumbag, so she came to reason with her? I admit that it was my fault for starting the conflict. However, you've already taught him a lesson. Why can't you let Di Tiansong go? Ji Lixue's expression was filled with helplessness. She was indeed angry with Di Tiansong, but she also felt very uncomfortable when she saw Di Tiansong in pain last night. We've already dealt with the trouble you caused, but Di Tiansong came to cause trouble again yesterday. Naturally, he had to endure it again. You should know the whole story of such a simple matter, right? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was gentle. Her impression of Ji Lixue was not as bad as before. After all, it was indeed a very sad thing to be given away by the person you liked. Hearing this, Ji Lixue's expression was somewhat awkward. She knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was telling the truth. If Di Tiansong hadn't gone to cause trouble again, he wouldn't have ended up like this. However, the other party's methods were too cruel. Di Tiansong's painful expression was still vivid in her mind. If this continued, Di Tiansong might really die. Then, I'll apologize on Di Tiansong's behalf. Can you let Di Tiansong go and hand over the antidote? Ji Lishue bowed deeply to Bailey Hongzhuang. They were indeed in the wrong. Moreover, Di Tiansong's life was still in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Not interested. Di Beichen dropped a few words and then left the list with Bailey Hongzhuang. There were a lot of people squeezing in and out of the crowd. This answer was completely out of Ji Lishue's expectations. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen ignored her request, she couldn't help but grit her teeth and make a decision. Plop. A voice rang out behind Bailey Hongzhuang, followed by Ji Lishue's voice. I beg you. Yesterday, she had thought of many ways to cure Di Tiansong, but no matter what she did, she still couldn't cure him. The other party clearly wanted to torture Di Tiansong, so they didn't give him a quick death. She had grown up with Di Tiansong and couldn't bear to see him in such pain. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but stop in their tracks. The two looked at each other, and Di Beichen only smiled faintly. The choice was up to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Ji Lishue, who was kneeling on the ground, and sighed in her heart. Chapter 2575. Ji Lishue was truly pitiful. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of Ji Lishue and squatted down. Ji Lishue, I advise you to think about it carefully. Di Tiansong doesn't have true feelings for you. In comparison, he doesn't even like you as much as you Ruelin. If you really get together with him, that would be a tragedy. Don't let yourself sink into a tragedy, or else no one will be able to save you. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice and stood up after saying this. She didn't give him the antidote, because Di Tiansong's death was already set the moment he thought of taking revenge on her yesterday. She wouldn't hesitate to kill such a scumbag. Ji Lishue's body trembled as she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's back in astonishment. Her heart was filled with disbelief. She never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would say such words to her. However, the content of those words was what she had been struggling with. She could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking for her when she said those words, which was what she found unbelievable. However, she couldn't refute those words. All along, she just didn't want to admit it, didn't want to face it, but in fact, she knew very well that everything was true. The surrounding crowd looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Ji Lishue in confusion. They didn't understand what Bailey Hongzhuang had said to make Ji Lishue reveal such an expression. Master, you didn't hand over the antidote, but why is Ji Lishue's expression so strange? She doesn't seem to hate you. Xiao He was a little confused. The change just now was really hard to understand. She will actually thank me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Ji Lishue wasn't a stupid person. She wanted to free herself from this pain, but she couldn't make up her mind. Thus, it wasn't a bad idea to borrow someone else's help. It was better to get the pain over with. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts in the chaos ring couldn't help but look at each other. What did she mean? Not long after, when everyone had already gathered at the central plaza, the voice of the great elder of the Yu clan resounded from the high platform. The list of those who have passed the preliminary round is out. The finals will be held next. The doctors and poison masters whose names I have called out, come up to the stage one by one. The Yu clan great clan elder's face was full of smiles. Many good seedlings had appeared in this recruitment event, especially the first place Xian Yi. His results were simply breathtaking. Yesterday, when Yu Siqing saw Xian Yi's test paper, she couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. This girl was born to be a doctor. However, for her to be so powerful, she wondered if she had a famous teacher. Therefore, he wanted to investigate last night, but he didn't expect to see Yu Ruelin looking for trouble with Xian Yi and Xian Yi. However, he also understood some things from Yu Ruelin. Logically speaking, these two people should have fought their way out of the Yu clan alone. Now, they probably wanted to continue living in the Yu clan's safe haven. First place, number 169, declare your will. The great elder of the Yu clan was the first to call out this name. Although the finals hadn't started yet, he felt that this Xian Yi would definitely become a member of the Yu clan. Following the great elder of the Yu clan's words, everyone's gaze searched the crowd. They had long been curious about who this Xian Yi was. Chapter 2576. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked up to the stage under everyone's shocked gazes. Seeing this scene, everyone present was already dumbfounded. Impossible, right? How could this girl who handed in her papers so early be first place in the preliminary round? However, when Bailey Hongzhuang naturally walked to the Yu clan great elder's side and stood still, everyone could confirm that this girl was really first place Xianyi. In that moment, everyone's gaze towards Bailey Hongzhuang changed. Compared to yesterday's contempt and ridicule, it had now turned into shock and admiration. Oh my god, this girl is first place Xianyi? She really doesn't reveal anything. Does that mean that she handed in her paper so early yesterday because she had already finished the questions? Isn't her speed a little too shocking? She's so strong, she's simply a weirdo. Ji Lixue also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. She had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be first place. This woman had never shown any arrogance in her medical skills. She even thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was only here to try her luck at the recruitment ceremony. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had actually finished all the questions in such a short time and even got full marks. All these years, she had always been working hard on her medical skills and had never slacked off. Even so, she still encountered some questions that were difficult to answer and needed to think carefully. Bailey Hongzhuang had only taken such a short time to finish the questions. How much did she understand to be able to answer them? Yu Ruilin, who had just arrived at the Central Plaza, was also stunned when he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was first place. However, after thinking carefully, he immediately understood why the Great Elder had appeared in the restaurant yesterday. At this moment, Yu Ruilin couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't kill Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday. If he did, he's afraid that the family would punish him greatly. After all, the first place of the preliminary round had died in his hands. To the entire Yu clan, this was a slap in the face. Di Tiansong, that bastard, also told me that this woman was not capable and that it would not be a problem to kill her. How could the first place be called not capable? Yu Ruilin's face was full of anger. Although Xianyi was only first place in the preliminary round, judging from the Great Elder's attention, he was afraid that Xianyi was not ordinary. If Xianyi won first place in the recruitment competition, then she would have a very high status in the Yu clan. She couldn't be easily offended. Yu Ruilin quickly made up his mind. He would act as if nothing had happened and not look for trouble with Xianyi. Second place, number 317, Ji Lixue. Ji Lixue slowly walked up the stage and came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. At this moment, her feelings towards Bailey Hongzhuang were even more different than before. No wonder after Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned Di Tiansong yesterday, no matter what she thought of, she couldn't help Di Tiansong break the poison. It could be seen that Bailey Hongzhuang had dabbled in poison techniques to a certain extent. As a doctor, she had a certain understanding of poison techniques. It was just that the poison she knew was not as good as a poison master. Third place, number 318, Di Tiansong. After the Great Elder of the Yu clan announced Di Tiansong's name, no one went up the stage for a long time. Chapter 2577. If no one comes up, then we'll take it as giving up. The Yu clan Great Elder's face was cold. No matter what the reason was, he could only take it as giving up. The Yu clan Great Elder didn't understand the reason, but there were many people who understood it. Di Tiansong had been taught a lesson yesterday, and Ji Lixue had knelt down and begged Bailey Hongzhuang today. Needless to say, it was Bailey Hongzhuang who made Di Tiansong unable to come. This Di Tiansong is really unlucky. He had to offend the two of them, and now his future is ruined. Speaking of which, Di Tiansong didn't know what was good for him. They had already let him go, but he insisted on finding trouble with them. Who can he blame? Actually, I also think that Di Tiansong is just a lackey who reaps what he sows. Everyone shook their heads. The news of Di Tiansong's performance in the restaurant yesterday had spread like wildfire. No matter what, it was Di Tiansong who refused to give up. Bailey Hongzhuang and Ji Lixue couldn't be blamed. Even if it was someone else, they wouldn't let Di Tiansong go so easily. Bailey Hongzhuang and Ji Lixue's actions were completely within their expectations. After Ji Lishue saw that Di Tiansong couldn't appear, her expression was very complicated, but she eventually calmed down. No matter what, she was still a girl who grew up in the clan. After this incident, she could see clearly that Di Tiansong didn't like her at all. He only treated her as a bargaining chip. After Yu Ruelin saw that Di Tiansong didn't appear, his mood was very good. He originally wanted to teach Di Tiansong a lesson himself, but now it seemed that he didn't need to do anything. This was a good sign. Compared to the number of participants in the preliminary round, there were less than 100 people left in the final round. 1 in 5, this probability was much lower than what everyone had guessed before. However, when these 100 people stood on the high platform, it still seemed like a lot. The Yu clan Great Elder looked at the people on the high platform with satisfaction. This number was much more than in previous recruitment gatherings. Yu Siqing didn't lower the difficulty of the preliminary round. From this, it could be seen that there were many capable participants. The final round will be held later. It will be hosted by Master Yu Siqing. There are a total of 3 rounds. According to different performances, there will be different scores. If you have a total score of 10, you can pass the recruitment gatherings. As the voice of the Yu family's great elder fell, everyone couldn't help but stare at Bailey Hongzhuang's body. A total score of 10 was enough to pass. This Bailey Hongzhuang's score in the preliminary round was already enough for her to pass. This Bailey Hongzhuang is definitely one of the people who passed. She's really amazing. In the history of the recruitment conference, there has never been a case where someone directly passed after participating in the finals. Ji Lishue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a myriad of emotions. She thought that she would definitely take the lead in this recruitment gatherings. She didn't expect a dark horse to appear halfway. Bailey Hongzhuang was completely unaware of everyone's gazes. Her mind was only thinking that she would be able to see Yu Siqing soon. Chapter 2578. Not long after, Yu Taotian and Yu Siqing slowly walked up the stage under everyone's watchful eyes. Seeing Yu Siqing's appearance, everyone's eyes were filled with a trace of worship. In Yu Tian City, Yu Siqing's reputation was the most resounding, because she was fully deserving of the title of Master Poison Doctor. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze also landed on Yu Siqing. This was her second time seeing Yu Siqing. However, the last time she saw Yu Siqing, it was too urgent, so she didn't really see Yu Siqing's appearance clearly. Yu Siqing was dressed in a dark green robe. Her figure was slightly plump, but her face was extremely thin. Her eyes revealed a trace of sharpness and ruthlessness. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Yu Siqing. She couldn't help but admit that in terms of appearance, Yu Siqing definitely couldn't be compared to Mu Jinsei. No wonder Yu Siqing had always been jealous of Mu Jinsei. Back then, there were countless people who pursued Mu Jinsei in Tiangang sect. However, there weren't many who pursued Yu Siqing. As a member of the Yu clan, Yu Siqing was naturally proud and arrogant. She looked down on Mu Jinsei's background, and seeing everyone pursuing Mu Jinsei, she was already dissatisfied. It was only until Si Tu Yan's appearance that the conflict intensified. Speaking of which, the young Mu Jinsei and Mu Lingbing were too naive. That was why they fell into the hands of the Yu clan women. Because of her jealousy, Yu Siqing had ruined Mu Jinsei's appearance. However, if the restored Mu Jinsei were to appear in front of Yu Siqing would probably collapse. When she went to the Lan clan, Yu Siqing would also know about it. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was sizing up Yu Siqing's gaze also landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. She was extremely curious about the doctor who had obtained full marks this time. According to the Great Elder, this Xian Yi had quickly handed in her paper. However, she was able to obtain full marks. It could be seen that Xian Yi's foundation was very good. Her medical skills should also be very good. Yu Siqing liked this kind of talent. The Yu clan needed this kind of talent. If her medical skills were outstanding, she would be able to make a name for herself in the Yu clan. As the #1 medical family, the Yu clan would definitely be able to give Xian Yi the best training. Yu Siqing was very satisfied with this. She had even decided that if Xian Yi's performance in the finals was outstanding enough, then she would accept Xian Yi as her personal disciple. In this way, Xianyi could take care of most of the patients in the future, and she would have more things to do. After all, no matter who it was, they all liked to beg her to take action. She was also very annoyed, and it was also very good to have someone to share the burden. She had originally planned to recruit a personal disciple, but she felt that Ji Lixue was a good candidate. She had been interested in medicine since she was young, and she was very motivated. However, she didn't expect Xianyi to be even more outstanding than Ji Lixue. This made Yu Siqing change her mind. However, the final result would depend on their performance in the finals. Today, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan did not appear. It was obvious that Yu Siqing was hosting the recruitment assembly. They had to take care of Lan Qingyan. Chapter 2579. Congratulations on passing the preliminaries of the recruitment meet. As long as you pass the finals, you can become a part of the Yu clan and learn the Yu clan's medicine and poison arts. In the future, you can choose to stay in the Yu clan or join other forces for a better development. Yu Siqing's face was filled with a faint smile, but it did not reach her eyes. After hearing Yu Siqing's words, the doctors and poison masters were even more excited. This was what they were looking forward to the most. No matter if they stayed in the Yu clan or joined other forces, their status would be much higher than before. So, you have to do your best in the finals. Only those who perform well will be able to stay. When Yu Siqing saw the excited expressions on the faces of nearly 100 doctors and poison masters, she revealed a satisfied expression. She could see the fanaticism and worship on these young people's faces, and she was the one they worshipped the most. Yu Taotian was also very emotional when he saw this scene. In this recruitment meet, even as the Yu clan's clan master, he could not compare to Yu Siqing. Ji Lixue's eyes were shining. She had admired Yu Siqing since she was young and had always wanted to become her disciple. All these years, she had worked hard and only participated in this recruitment meet when she had enough confidence in herself. Now that she saw Yu Siqing standing in front of her, she could not help but feel excited. Next, we will begin the first round of the competition, identifying medicinal herbs. After Yu Taotian, Yu Siqing and the rest sat down on the high platform. The Yu clan great elder announced the content of the first round of the competition. After hearing that the first round of the finals was to identify medicinal herbs, everyone's face was filled with astonishment. Whether it was a doctor or an alchemist, identifying medicinal herbs was the most basic thing. Now that they were being tested on their ability to identify medicinal herbs, it was a waste of time. Master, the first round of the finals is to identify medicinal herbs. Everyone should be able to do it, right? Xiao He was puzzled. The doctors and poison masters who could pass the preliminaries were not weak, so it should not be a problem for them to identify medicinal herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Whether it is a doctor or a poison master, understanding medicinal herbs is the most important thing. Many times, this foundation cannot be neglected. Moreover, many medicinal herbs in the Shengxian continent look very similar, but their effects are not the same. Even some old doctors who have practiced medicine for many years may make mistakes. I think that this round is a trap set by the Yu clan. If you underestimate it, I'm afraid there will be problems. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao He did not understand. Anyway, it did not have much understanding of medicinal herbs, but since its master said so, there must be a reason. There are a total of 100 types of medicinal herbs to be identified, and a total of 5 points will be given. 1 point will be deducted for each mistake. If all the points are deducted, you will fail. After 3 rounds, including the preliminary round score, you will fail. Following the Yu clan great elder's words, the faces of all the participants became serious. Previously, they didn't think much of it. But now, it seemed like they had to make sure that they didn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, if they made too many mistakes, they would have no chance at all. Chapter 2580. Very quickly, the Yu clan disciples brought the 100 sets of medicinal ingredients to the center of the stage. Around the 100 sets of medicinal ingredients were long tables. Every time, 50 cultivators would come forward to answer the questions, writing the names of the medicinal ingredients one by one on a piece of paper. The cultivators behind them had to maintain a certain distance, and were not allowed to see the content written by the cultivators in front of them. The duration of the competition was half an hour. The participants had to write down the names of all the medicinal ingredients on a piece of paper and hand it over to the U clan. After hearing the rules of the competition, everyone looked at each other. They were not sure if the competition was simple or not. Now, the top 50 participants can come forward to compete. Following the U clan great elder's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked to the long table, and the 100 sets of medicinal ingredients fell into their eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang only took a glance and understood Yu Siqing's plan. Many of these medicinal ingredients were extremely similar, with only slight differences. Now that they were placed together and separated by a certain distance, one had to have a solid foundation in order to distinguish them. Otherwise, it would be easy to make a wrong judgment. After seeing this scene, the other participants naturally knew that the first round of the finals was not so simple. If they wanted to get a high score, they had to be careful. Otherwise, if they made a mistake, it would be terrible. Ji Lixue naturally also noticed the uniqueness of these medicinal ingredients. It was obvious that the Yu clan had deliberately arranged this. She could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to know Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression did not change much from the beginning to the end, as if this competition did not pressure her at all. It was impossible to see what she was thinking. If it was before, Ji Lixue would definitely think that Bailey Hongzhuang was deliberately pretending. But now, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, she only had an unfathomable feeling. Not revealing the mountain, not revealing the water, this was her current understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang. While Ji Lixue was sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang, Yu Siqing was also looking at Bailey Hongzhuang. She also wanted to know how Bailey Hongzhuang felt about this, but Bailey Hongzhuang's lack of reaction made her think even more highly of her. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel that Yu Siqing was looking at her, but she pretended not to feel it. In fact, it was not easy for her to hide her disgust for Yu Siqing. However, in order to deal a blow to Yu Siqing, she could only hide her hatred and disgust. After everyone had a clear look at these medicinal herbs, they quickly started to write. Many of the herbs here were unfamiliar and unconventional. Coupled with the fact that there was a certain distance between them, it wasn't easy to determine which one was which. As everyone started writing, the spectators below the stage realized that many of them were frowning. After writing some content, they stopped and revealed a look of deep thought. Seeing this, even though many officials did not know about medicinal ingredients, they knew that this test was not that easy. Otherwise, they would not be stumped. Ji Lixue could not help but observe Bailey Hongzhuang as she wrote. Chapter 2581. Many doctors and poison masters couldn't help but glance at the people around them as they filled in the form. They wanted to judge whether their answers were correct or not. However, everyone had their guard up against others, so this method wasn't very effective. Furthermore, the elders and disciples of the Yu clan were all around them. It would be even more awkward if they were discovered. Ji Lixue couldn't help but frown as she filled in the form. She had always memorized medicinal herbs, but many of the herbs here were very obscure. She didn't have a deep impression of some of them. Furthermore, they were all similar herbs mixed together, so she had to think about them. Many of the obscure herbs weren't used at all, so even some doctors and poison masters didn't bother to memorize them. Ji Lixue had thought that anything could happen at the recruitment event, so she had done her research on a lot of unorthodox things. Over the years, the Yu clan's recruitment assembly had tested many obscure herbs. However, these herbs were even more obscure than she had expected. While writing, Ji Lixue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Compared to her, who sometimes needed to think, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was always calm, without the slightest change. Bailey Hongzhuang identified the herbs as she wrote down the names of the herbs calmly. She didn't stop from beginning to end, nor did she show any signs of distress. Although there were some changes in the herbs from 1,000 years ago and 1,000 years later, they were still roughly the same. After Bailey Hongzhuang had crossed over, she had already crammed all of this into her head and firmly remembered it in her mind. In her mind, she had to be familiar with all kinds of herbs. Many herbs that weren't used on a daily basis could play a crucial role in certain situations, so none of them could be ignored. The herbs that Yu Siqing had taken out, apart from a small number of familiar herbs, were mostly unorthodox, rarely used, and rarely seen. However, this kind of problem was easy for Bailey Hongzhuang. Ji Lishue couldn't help but feel anxious when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang like this. She thought that other doctors and poison masters couldn't compare to her in this aspect, but she had a bad premonition when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, who was as calm as the wind. This woman really hid her strength well. It seemed that this stage wasn't difficult for her. Ji Lishue felt a faint sense of helplessness in her heart. She was afraid that she couldn't compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. It wasn't easy for Master Yu Siqing to recruit a direct disciple, so she came with this goal in mind. If there was no Bailey Hongzhuang, then it was very likely that he would be the candidate for the pro-disciple position. But with the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, the situation would change a bit. Ji Lishue couldn't help but feel sad when the opportunity in front of her disappeared just like that. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already finished the test and handed the test paper over to the Yu family's first elder. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was the first to hand in the test again, and the test was very short, the Yu clan great elder didn't feel so doubtful anymore. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance yesterday was already shocking. It wouldn't be strange if it happened again today. Chapter 2582. After finishing the competition, Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the resting area below the stage to wait. Because this round of the exam only took 2 hours, the second round of the finals would continue after the first round ended. She could only wait nearby for now. My wife's grace is truly incomparable to others. Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang walking down with a face full of smiles, and couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Di Beichen's side and sat down. Thank you for the compliment. This is the truth. Xian Yi's name is going to resound throughout Yutian City. Di Beichen's deep and handsome eyes rippled with a complicated yet resplendent light. When they left, her name would probably be even more resounding. If Yu Siqing and the others knew that Xian Yi was Yi Xian, their reactions would definitely be very interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. We can't keep a low profile anymore. When the spectators below the stage saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was the first to finish the competition again, they all exclaimed in surprise. This Xian Yi is really amazing. I feel that in this year's recruitment meet, she won't be able to escape the title of first place. I thought that the first place of this year's recruitment meet would definitely be Ji Lishue. I didn't expect that it would be snatched away by an outsider. You all must have noticed that even Master Yu Siqing was paying attention to Xian Yi's performance just now. Her results are so outstanding, it's hard for her not to be noticed. She will definitely stay in the Yu clan in the future. Luckily we didn't offend her. Otherwise, our days in Yutian City wouldn't be good. In a moment, the people of Yutian City had already listed Bailey Hongzhuang as one of the people they couldn't afford to offend. In Yutian City, powerful doctors and poison masters couldn't be offended. Once they entered the Yu clan, their status would follow. Even if they were part of the Yu clan's branch family, their status couldn't be compared to theirs. Master, I think that Yu Siqing seems to admire you quite a bit. Xiao Hei's eyes rolled around. Previously, when Yu Siqing appeared, it had specially sized her up. Yu Siqing's gaze only stayed on 2 people for a moment. That was Master and Ji Lishue. Among them, it stayed on Master for the longest time. Isn't that good? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a playful smile, the sarcasm in her eyes growing more and more intense. The baby girl that Yu Siqing had almost killed back then was now standing right in front of her. Yu Siqing, Yu Siqing, Yu Siqing, Yu Siqing's Yu Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Some ideas were forming in her mind. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen's eyes lit up. Seems like my wife already has an idea? Doctors are also a very precious resource. These years, all the powerful doctors have been monopolized by the Yu clan. If you want to recruit powerful doctors, you must have a favor with the Yu clan. Chapter 2583. Bailey Hongzhuang also had a certain amount of confidence in this. Her medical skills were not inferior to Yu Siqing's, so it was not a problem for her to guide doctors and poison masters. It was just that she was not too flamboyant in this aspect. Once she destroyed the Yu clan, these doctors and poison masters would have no place to go for a while. If Limitless Palace was willing to recruit them, everyone would be willing to do so. If we nurture these doctors, Tiangang Sect and Sun Moon Palace would not need to worry about this aspect in the future. In the long run, they would become more and more famous. I think this is a good direction. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with confidence. She understood the value of doctors and poison masters very well. Although doctors did not seem to be of much use on normal days, they would be of great use in some crucial moments. It was impossible for any power not to need the existence of doctors. Snatching away the fruits of Yu Siqing's labor would definitely be a huge blow to Yu Siqing. Master, this is a good idea. Xiao He immediately jumped up after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's idea. This was simply too good. First give the Yu clan a devastating blow, then recruit these people. Presumably, the Yu clan would be completely dumbfounded. Bewitching also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with admiration. My wife's idea is very good. If it is developed, it is indeed a good opportunity. However, my wife, have you thought of how to start? Seeing that Bewitching also agreed with her idea, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile could not help but widen. Let's start with Ji Lishue. When she said this, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang both smiled tacitly. It was obvious that the two of them had the same idea on this point. The three beasts were confused when they heard their conversation. The relationship between their master and Ji Lishue was already so stiff, how could they start with Ji Lishue? However, since their master and Bewitching both agreed, they could only wait and see. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished her test, Ji Lishue also finished her test. She slowly walked to the side and sat down. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ji Lishue with interest, but Ji Lishue did not dare to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, no matter if it was strength or medical skills, she was below Bailey Hongzhuang. She no longer had the confidence she had before. Yu Ruelin immediately went to Lishue's side. Lishue, you completed the first test so quickly, your results must be very good. A wisp of annoyance couldn't help but appear in the depths of Ji Lishue's eyes when she saw Yu Ruelin, but she didn't dare show it directly. Yu Ruelin was the Yu clan's 7th young master. Normally, his position in the Yu clan was not bad. If she had a direct conflict with Yu Ruelin, she would not have a good time in the Yu clan. She originally thought that if she could become the direct disciple of Master Yu Siqing, then even Yu Ruelin would not dare to disturb her. However, with the sudden appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, all her plans were ruined. Ji Lishue did not know what to do now. If she could not become a direct disciple, she would not be able to avoid being pestered by Yu Ruelin after entering the Yu clan. However, feelings could not be forced. She no longer liked Di Tiansong, but she still did not like Yu Ruelin. Chapter 2584. This scene did not escape Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. This made them even more certain of the feasibility of their idea. It seemed that with Yu Ruelin's assistance, it would be even easier for them to complete this task. However, they would have to wait until they had all entered the Yu clan before they could take action. 2 hours passed very quickly, and all the participants had handed in their test papers. After the Yu clan great elder had collected all the test papers, he sent the clan's disciples to send the test papers back to the clan so that they could be approved as soon as possible. Next, we will proceed to the second stage of the finals. Prescription test, poison test. The Yu clan great elder immediately explained the second stage of the test. However, after hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel puzzled, not knowing what kind of test it was. This round of the test will be divided into 2 groups. Doctors and poison masters will undergo different tests, testing the methods and abilities you have grasped. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly listened to the Yu family great elder's introduction, secretly thinking in her heart. It seems that Yu Siqing intended to use this test to figure out everyone's strength and truly understand everyone's strength. Very quickly, the high platform also became 2 examination rooms. Doctors were in the left examination room, while poison masters were in the right examination room. However, the number of poison masters was obviously less than the number of doctors. There were about 20 poison masters, while the rest were all doctors. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had gathered together, the Yu clan great elder told them the details of the test. In front of them were a total of 50 types of medicinal ingredients. Everyone could write the prescription according to the different combinations of these medicinal ingredients. Not only that, everyone could add the medicinal ingredients they thought of into the prescription. However, they could only add 2 medicinal ingredients at most. The more prescriptions they wrote, the higher their score would be. Hearing this test method, many doctors frowned. This recruitment assembly really lives up to its reputation. The test method is ingenious and completely unexpected. There are a total of 50 types of medicinal ingredients here, and only a few prescriptions can be formed. However, from the great elder's performance, it seems that the situation is not so simple. This is a test of the prescriptions we have grasped. However, there are so many prescriptions in this world, and we can casually add 2 medicinal ingredients. As long as we don't think clearly, we might write less. Everyone frowned. There was no accurate answer to this kind of test. This was not only a test of their knowledge, but also their patience and attentiveness. In this limited time, they had to spend enough time together to come up with a prescription. Just thinking about it made him feel very troubled. Ji Lishue couldn't help but frown when she saw this. This method of assessment really made her feel helpless. She was already upset after being disturbed by Yu Ruelin earlier, and now she had to think about it again. It was really troublesome. Now, the test begins. Following the Yu clan great elder's command, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others took up their brushes and started writing down the recipes that they had already thought of. There were quite a number of recipes that could be formed from the combination of these 50 herbs. If he didn't memorize them now, he might forget them later. Do you guys think that this declaration will be the first to be completed again? That's possible. I feel like none of these questions are too difficult for Xian Yi. Chapter 2585. To Bailey Hongzhuang, these questions were nothing. In the past, she would also test the doctors of the Bailey family with such questions. She also remembered the prescription very clearly. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly wrote down the prescription that appeared in her mind and handed it in again. From the beginning to the end, she was the undisputed first person to hand in her paper. After the great elder of the Yu clan received Bailey Hongzhuang's paper, he directly handed it to Yu Siqing. Yu Siqing was also very curious about Bailey Hongzhuang's results. Patience and attentiveness were also very important in the second round. Most people would spend enough time thinking about it. As long as they could think of one more way, their chances of winning would be higher. Siqing, you are also very concerned about Xian Yi's performance. Yu Taotian couldn't help but ask when he saw Yu Siqing marking Bailey Hongzhuang's paper for the second round of the examination. Yu Siqing nodded. Her slightly cold face didn't have much expression. I think this is a good seedling. Her performance is very outstanding. If this paper is done well enough, then I have found someone to be my direct disciple. Hearing Yu Siqing's words, Yu Taotian's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Yu Siqing to have the idea of accepting Xian Yi as her direct disciple so quickly. In the past, he had been persuading Yu Siqing to accept a direct disciple. As long as Yu Siqing was able to inherit her skills, she would have more things to do. However, Yu Siqing didn't have much of a reaction to this. He didn't expect Yu Siqing to suddenly be interested. This was really a good thing. In the past, everyone came to the Yu clan because of Yu Siqing's reputation. However, after Yu Siqing taught them some things, she wouldn't teach them anymore. Instead, she would let the other doctors of the Yu clan teach them. This caused many people to be disappointed. As Yu Siqing's elder brother, he knew Yu Siqing's character very well. As long as Yu Siqing wasn't willing to do it, even if he asked her to do it, it would be useless. If Yu Siqing had a direct disciple, then he could let Yu Siqing's direct disciple do many things in the future. In this way, wouldn't it be more convenient? I think this announcement is very good. Yu Taotian's face was filled with a satisfied smile. It would be a good choice if I could become your personal disciple. Yu Siqing was non-committal as her gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang's test paper. As for the specifics, it will depend on his performance. Upon hearing Yu Siqing's words, Yu Taotian couldn't help but look at the content submitted by Bailey Hongzhuang. Taking a closer look, Yu Taotian realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had written more than 20 possibilities. Seeing this, Yu Taotian could not help but smile. According to the answers he saw just now, there seemed to be a total of more than 20 possibilities. This proved that Bailey Hongzhuang had roughly written down all the possibilities that could appear. It seems that Bailey Hongzhuang's performance is not bad. Yu Taotian couldn't help but look at Yu Siqing, only to see Yu Siqing staring blankly at the test paper in her hand. Her expression was somewhat unnatural. Is there a problem? Yu Taotian frowned. Yu Siqing's expression was a little strange. Chapter 2586. Seeing Yu Siqing's strange reaction, Yu Taotian was puzzled and took the answer sheet to have a look. When Yu Taotian saw the answer sheet, he suddenly understood why Yu Siqing had such an expression. This was because Yu Siqing had written a total of 25 answers, but Xian Yi's paper had 26 answers. Although there was only one more type, the difference between the two was not small. Even Yu Siqing could only come up with 25 answers, but Xian Yi was able to come up with 26 answers. This was too terrifying. Siqing, is the additional answer correct? Yu Taotian couldn't help but ask. Yu Siqing remained silent for a moment before nodding her head. That's right. Even I overlooked this possibility. Yu Siqing's expression was extremely complicated. This possibility was unorthodox, but it was a fact. She knew that there was such a possibility, but before she saw the content of the answer sheet, she had indeed overlooked this possibility. This Xian Yi reminded her. If that's the case, Xian Yi's ability isn't ordinary. Yu Taotian couldn't help but exclaim. Even Yu Siqing had overlooked this possibility, but Xian Yi was able to come up with it. This proved how solid Xian Yi's foundation was and how terrifying her knowledge was. However, Yu Taotian couldn't help but size up Yu Siqing as he said this. As Yu Siqing's brother, he knew her character very well. Xian Yi's performance was too outstanding, and this matter was undoubtedly a slap to Yu Siqing's face. He wondered if Yu Siqing would be angry because of this. One must know that sometimes, it might not be a good thing for a disciple to be too outstanding. Yu Siqing wasn't a broad-minded person, and Yu Taotian was very clear about this. Hearing Yu Taotian's words, Yu Siqing nodded her head. Her calm face didn't reveal any thoughts. That's right. This Xian Yi is indeed a good seedling. If she were to become my direct disciple, I would be able to save a lot of effort in teaching, and it would be much more convenient. Seeing that Yu Siqing wasn't angry because of this matter, Yu Taotian couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. It would be a pity if Xian Yi lost the opportunity to become his direct disciple because of her outstanding performance. As long as they could recruit this Xian Yi, he would definitely become one of the Yu clan's signboards in the future. The others naturally noticed the changes in Yu Taotian and Yu Siqing's expressions and couldn't help but feel puzzled. What did Bailey Hongzhuang write on the test paper that could make Master Yu Siqing reveal such a strange expression? Bailey Hongzhuang naturally noticed this, but she didn't think there was anything wrong with what she wrote. Therefore, she didn't know what exactly happened. When Ji Lishue saw that Yu Siqing had actually taken the initiative to look at Bailey Hongzhuang's answers, she couldn't help but feel a little anxious. The limelight that should have belonged to her was now completely stolen by Bailey Hongzhuang. And from Yu Siqing's performance, she didn't just admire Bailey Hongzhuang. If this continued, she would really have no hope at all. Soon, Ji Lishue also handed in her paper. When Yu Siqing saw that Ji Lishue had handed in her paper, she couldn't help but take a look at Ji Lishue's paper. Ji Lishue was originally the candidate for her direct disciple. Seeing Yu Siqing's action, Ji Lishue couldn't help but reveal a joyful smile on her face. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.